Hey everyone, it's Jody, and welcome back to The Blessed Mind. And last week, and probably for quite a while, we are going in through the book of Colossians. It's an amazing book. It's super short. And one of the things that I thought was so cool about the book of Colossians is when you study it is Paul never even really met the Colossians. He was in prison and he never met them face to face, but he cared so much for them. And I just love that, just thinking about that, because isn't that how we're supposed to be as Christians? We're supposed to love and care for other believers. And so I just think this book is amazing. And so this is going to sound a little crazy, but Colossians 1:1 is so short, but you get so much just out of that one verse. It literally has took me all week to get this stuff. And so one question that I want to answer today is, a lot of people have asked me this. They say, Jody, how do I know that I'm in the will of God? And Colossians 1:1 says this. It says, Paul, comma, an apostle of Christ Jesus, comma, by the will of God, and Timothy our brother. I love this because Paul always introduces himself as someone that is straight from God. He's sent by God. He says an apostle of Christ Jesus, and he serves God, not others. He wants to let people know, I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about you. I'm here simply because God sent me, and that's my will. That's his will. That's what I do. He says by the will of God, and Timothy our brother. So how do you know if you're in God's will? And these are two things that I thought that would really they bring perspective into thinking like this, because a lot of times we're not sure what God's will is for our life. We're always searching and looking, and I always say that we're completely empty until we find that place. But you always got to start somewhere, and so I want to encourage you today to start where you're at right now. Whatever the gift is that God gave you or the ability, just do it, okay? And so here's two things to know if it's in the will of God. Number one is you will enjoy it. And I know that kind of sounds a little different because you're like, well, what about difficulties I face? Yes, you will face difficulties, but here's the difference. You will have joy in what you're doing. And when the difficulties come, God gives you grace and wisdom to overcome them difficulties. I love doing what God has called me to do. He's called me to teach his word, and I love it. It brings great joy, even though I face difficulties sometimes, and I don't know what to say to some people. I don't know what to do because of their circumstances, but God gives me the grace and the wisdom to move forward. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. I think that for real, if you're in the will of God, he empowers you to do it. And number two, he's going to equip you. A lot of people are out there trying to do things that someone else is doing and God didn't equip them for. And so I just want to encourage you today, whatever God's will is for your life, he's going to equip you to do it. I always say this: he calls you, he equips you, and he anoints you. So whatever God wants you to do, trust me, he will give you the ability to do it. God gives you skills, gifts, abilities to carry out his will in your life. So don't forget that. He will always, if he calls you, he will equip you. And so the last thing I just want to end with is this: is be very careful with competing with others. I said before that, we're always trying to find and duplicate what someone else is doing, but God has a special place for you. And so don't compare yourself. Don't say, well, I'm not as far along in the word as she is, or I don't get to speak at gatherings, or I don't get to do this or whatever. Stay where you are. Let God use you, and let him just reach out to you and give you that desire that he has for your life, because he wants you to have purpose and he wants you to have meaning without comparing yourself to others. And so I just want to encourage you today to reach out to God and say, God, I want to find my place. I want to be in your will, Lord. And just keep asking him. And I promise you, just like he did me, he is going to call you to a specific place, and you're going to love it, and you will be equipped for it.